Hey everyone, it's Emily at ARG Schooling, and back in April I made some predictions about books that I thought would be 5 stars. I read those books, so let's talk about my thoughts. So last year I did 2 5-star prediction videos, and I did okay with one of them, but the second one just kind of fell apart. I don't even know if I ever came back and wrapped that one up. So this year I thought I'll just do one. And so back in April, I chose 5 books that were on my shelves already, and I decided I would just choose which ones I thought would be 5 stars for me. So these are the books that I picked, and I read them, so let's talk. Of these 5 books, only 3 of them were 5 stars. So 3 out of 5 isn't terrible, right? So for the ones that were 5 stars, let's talk about those. I read Tokyo Dreaming by Amiko Jean, and I was pleasantly surprised with how great this was. I really picked this as a 5-star prediction because I am obsessed with this cover. And also the sequel, which I haven't read yet, but like, these are some of my favorite covers to come out of 2022. I think, did these both come out this year? I don't know. I know this might be like 2021 release, and I know this is new because I just got this a few months ago. So like, I'm obsessed with these covers. And that is kind of how I picked this as a 5-star, which I know is not really what you're supposed to. You don't judge a book by its cover, blah, 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 whatever. I thought this was beautiful, and I wanted it to live up to how gorgeous it was. And you know what? It kind of did. This is not the kind of thing I generally read. Technically, this would fall under romance territory, and I don't usually enjoy reading romance novels. So, but I didn't know it was romance going in. Looking back, I should have figured that out. But anyway, this is a story about a teenage girl who is graduating from high school. So she's 18 at the start of the story, and she's never known who her father is. And her mother's always been a little bit secretive about it. And she decides to do some digging and finds out that her father is the crown prince of Japan, which means she is technically a royal and a princess. So she decides to explore that side of her family, and she goes on a journey to Japan and kind of finds herself in a new culture and in a very strange world where, like, the world of the royals and what it means to be a royal and decorum and all of that. And this is in fact a romance because she ends up falling in love with her bodyguard. And so did not know that going in. I think what saved this book for me and made me actually really love it was the whole, like, I really love stories where somebody from a culture who's never gotten to experience that culture suddenly does. So like someone growing up in America, but their family comes from another country, and then them going and exploring that culture that they've never really participated in fully. So like, that's what this was. She got to explore her family and her culture in Japan and learn more about like being a royal and what that means for her and that sort of thing. So I thought this was super fun. It's very lighthearted, very fluffy, not my usual, but really enjoyable nonetheless. Next up, I have Sundial by Catriona Ward. I got this in my Nightworm subscription, and I've just been obsessed with the cover. Again, I know you shouldn't do that, but I decided this is going to be 5 stars because this cover is gorgeous. And I've heard so many people talk about how great her writing is, and I know her previous book, I think it's The Last House on Needless Street, was super popular last year. I still haven't read that. This is my first Catriona Ward, but after reading this, I definitely want to go back and like read her other things. I think she only has one other book out now, but I know there's a new one coming out really soon. So this story is technically horror, but I didn't find it overly scary. Like, it's more, I'd say this is more falls under like weird and disturbing as opposed to like scary. This is a story about a mother and a daughter, but also twin sisters, also a very bad marriage situation, which going in, that's like the first thing I thought was, oh no, not a bad marriage book. I don't like that. But it is that, but it's also more than that. This book was very weird and twisty, and I don't really want to tell you guys too much because I think the less you know going in, the more exciting the reveals as they happen. There's some plot twists in here. There's a creepy little girl, like a super creepy little girl, which I love creepy kid stories. That's one of my favorite things. So like this story just did everything that I could possibly want it to do really well. So I'm definitely going to read more Catriona Ward if this is what I can expect from her books. My final 5-star from this stack was I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys. This is only the second Ruta Sepetys book that I've read, but I have to read everything she's written. Like, this was so excellent, and I should expect nothing less from Ruta Sepetys. The only other book I've read is Between Shades of Grey, which I read years ago, but still think about. And this book is one that I think I'll think about for years to come. Just, it's so well done. This is a story about the Romanian Revolution in the 1980s. You're following the perspective of a teenage boy who is experiencing everything happening and taking part in the revolution. And it's fascinating. It's really interesting to read. Romania in that time was just a really messed up place to live. There's a lot of like spying, like the whole system they lived under was just so crazy to think about, like that was happening in the 1980s. This book was really well written. Like I did a whole live show. This was for book club. So if you guys want to like hear my full thoughts, you can go check out that live show. I will link it somewhere here. But I highly recommend anything by Ruta Sepetys. I'm planning on like reading all of her books now. I think I own all of them, so I'm definitely going to read what I have, and anything she writes in the future is definitely an auto buy for me. Now let's talk about the ones that didn't quite work for me, or that just weren't a 5-star. So first is This Rebel Heart by Catherine Locke. I think my expectations for this book were just too high, and these are kind of similar premises. This is set in Romania in the 80s. This is set in Hungary in the 1950s. They're both about a revolution. What I liked about this was that it was super Jewish. Like, I really appreciated what Catherine Locke did with that. They are Jewish, so their story is gonna focus a lot on that aspect of the main character. I liked the whole plot with the angel. I liked the whole Gollum situation. I thought all of that was great. I don't know that I can pinpoint what specifically didn't work for me. It just, something about the flow of the story wasn't quite right. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I found myself kind of closing the book and going, and then going on with my life, and I haven't really stopped and thought about this book much since. And usually a 5-star book is one that I come back to and think about pretty frequently, and I haven't really done that with this. My favorite part overall was the Gollum and how they created it, but that is such a small part of this story that I can't really give it 5 stars just for that. But the writing in it was okay. It wasn't anything bad. Like, I literally cannot tell you what I didn't love about this. I gave it 4 stars, so I didn't hate it or anything. It just wasn't quite 5 stars for me. And the last book I want to talk about today is probably my biggest disappointment. Although I will say I went into this with just hopes and dreams. I wasn't sure what I was going to think of it. And that is Roxy by Neil Shusterman and Jared Shusterman. I just couldn't do it. This was a DNF for me, and I am so disappointed about that because I wanted to love this. I wanted to love this so badly. Like, I needed it to be good. And when I first heard about the premise of this, I went, I don't know. I wasn't sure that he could pull it off. The idea of writing a story about 2 kids getting addicted to drugs, but telling it from the perspective of the drugs and like personifying, like, no, that I wasn't sure, but I was willing to trust him. Like, he wrote one of my all-time favorite trilogies ever, and some of my favorite books, so I wanted this to be great, and it really wasn't. I didn't like the character, like I could not connect to the characters in the story at all. The two main characters are brother and sister, Ivy and Isaac, I think, and like they're just very flat characters. Like, I did not connect to them in any way, and they're almost written to where you can't connect to them, which was really disappointing. Maybe that gets better, but I only made it 100 pages in, so I don't know what happens beyond that. What I absolutely just hated about this book was the personification of the drugs. The way that was done was so cheesy, and like it made me cringe internally, like as I was reading it, just going, why did you do this? I did not enjoy that at all. And yeah, I didn't want to finish the story. Like, I didn't want to give it 0 stars. I didn't want to be like super negative on the internet about it, but like I just couldn't do it. So the only reason you guys are hearing me talk about it is because I put it in my 5-star prediction. So now I have to talk about it, because normally if I hate a book at all, I just like, it goes away. I never talk about it again. We don't speak of it. So it is what it is. But goodness, I hope that is not a thing that's going to happen again, because I really want Neal Shusterman's books to all be on par with the Arc of the Scythe trilogy, but you know what? I guess we can't have everything we want in life. So if I were going to rank these 5 books, it would look like this, with I Must Betray You at the top, then Sundial, then Tokyo Ever After, then This Rebel Heart, and Roxy at the bottom. So that's it for this video. Those were the 5-star predictions I made and my thoughts about all of them. Have you read any of these books? Let me know down below what your thoughts are on these stories, and if you thought they were good. Like, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on Roxy in particular, because like, I need to know I'm not alone here, that it was just that bad. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye.